at my screen. I've got this really cool picture of a couple of girls. You see the girls in my
I
background? I was
do.
like, yay! So I got it, since we're talking about girls in sport, I'm like, I even found the right photograph to be in the picture.
Oh, well,
we got our
hello, LinkedIn Live audience. Hello. As you can see, we were like 30 seconds late because we were so busy chit-chatting and catching up. Man, this is a hot topic. This is so critical. April in Angel Speaking World is Active Allyship Month. So I am highlighting specific things that those that have privilege, those that are in majority, identifying the majority in terms of gender or ethnicity or culture or race, when they see some inequity and they want to do something about it, well, oftentimes they just don't know what to do. So Inner Angel Speaking to help give those actionable, practical tips. However, one such wannabe active ally posed a question that I said, you know what, I'm going to need to look around into my community and bring in other folks that are in this space that are knowledgeable, that can help shed light and be a bit more educated in the answer. So let me give you all a little bit of context as to what we're talking about. So we are specifically talking about inclusion in sports, right? Not far from inclusion in tech or inclusion in certain educational programs like PhD programs or bioscience or computer science, right? There are a lot of areas around education, careers, and sports that just traditionally have a lack of diversity and inclusion. So specifically when we talk about sports, we are talking about certain sports, just certain ones. So let me give you an example from my childhood. So I was probably in second grade, and I had a little friend named Nicole. And I was invited to Nicole's house for a sleepover. And we get there, and all around Nicole's house is nothing but pictures and posters of horses. Nicole rode horses in her spare time and practiced and would go to the stables. And she had, apparently her parents had rented her a horse. So she had part ownership in a horse. And that was her extracurricular weekend activities. Very, very far from my extracurricular weekend activities, which was, you know, tap, dance, jazz, right? Modern, and maybe going, you know, skating or dancing or hanging out with friends on the weekend. Going horseback riding just hadn't even entered my little 7-8-year-old mind, right? And I remember, I won't say who it was, someone making a comment that, oh, that's not for you, that's for them. That's something that they do. And for those of you who might be wondering, the they was white people. There are some activities and some sports that white people do that Black people just do not participate in. Okay. So we don't have time to get into how they were, you know, how Black people and minorities were particularly ethnic, culture, racial minorities were actually kept out with laws and rules. But then that just kind of, in the US, that just kind of made its way down in the generations of, there's just some things we don't do. One of them, by the way, was swimming. And so however, though, now fast forward, it's junior high, I was fortunate enough to attend a school that had access to a pool. So I grew up in Northeast Ohio, in Akron, and a huge school, Firestone, just down the street. Firestone High School, very well known. I don't know about now, but definitely in the early 90s, very well known for their swimming program. So a gentleman by the name of Tim took me under his wing and not only taught me how to swim, but taught me how to swim competitively. So I ended up on the swim team in junior high and high school. I had friends that were like, doesn't that mess with your hair? And I'm like, yes, it does, right? Black hair and chlorine, not pretty, especially when you have a perm. So yes, there were some barriers. And I look back on it thinking, you know what? I was pretty privileged to have access to an Olympic-sized swimming pool and to some pretty high caliber swim coaches to teach me how to swim. Right. So that was my privilege. So now now fast forward, I'm in the DE&I space. I'm talking to athletic directors here in Indiana, and they pose the question, hey, Angel, we hear you. We want to be allies. We want to diversify. But when we talk about certain sports like rugby or soccer or swimming, how do we get those that are in low socioeconomic areas, one, interested, and two, help remove the barriers? Because quite frankly, some of those sports are expensive. Right. So I bring in my good friend Jelanna to help me answer this question. She's going to answer the question, and then she's going to say why she's one of the perfect active allies to talk about and address this very topic. Jelanna, your way.
Thank you, Angel. It's such a pleasure to be with you today, and I'm so honored to have the opportunity to talk about women who are really just the younger versions of who we've been. And I think about your experience as a young child, seeing inequities come to your forefront, to your consciousness. And then I think about the fact that in the last couple of generations, we'll say in the last 30 years, there's not a lot that's changed. I mean, the unfortunate thing is the challenges that we've seen and we still see, we haven't moved the needle very far. And so, one of the things that I think we should definitely consider in a future story is to allow you to hear some firsthand stories of some of those young women who have actually been a part of those experiences, but have somehow found a way to break through those barriers. Because I think their stories offer us the opportunity to answer the question more fluidly, because we've learned how they made it in spite of. And what we want to do is have young women, young girls make it because of.
Yeah.
So we want to go from in spite of to because of.
I love that.
And so I am so honored that we're here today. And I think one of the biggest ways, just to run right at the question, which is how do we provide more access to young women from our Black and Brown communities? How do we provide more access to sports, and specifically sports where there are barriers to entry for them? Is, in my mind, it's a very simple, and I don't want to oversimplify my answer, but I'm going to start with how how I have approached a macro problem that is similar but has a different layer of impact. And that is simply, we have to meet them where they are. The answer is, we have to go into these communities where these young people are, and we have to provide them with the ability to see themselves in that sport. And the simple ways to do that are ways that we can now use technology to impact them. I think I read the other day that the Gen Z population, so Gen Z, if you were born after 97, like 97 is the micro generation. So, we're talking about a 24 to 25-year-old.
Okay.
So we're definitely talking about the Gen Z population with young women, your daughter, girls around. This is Gen Z.
Okay.
So we've got a 20-year window here we're working with. And Gen Z, 95% of our Gen Z population over the age of 12 have smartphones. So one thing that we have started to do and started to think through is, how do you provide meet them where they are by using technology to solve the access issue? And so and we'll talk a little bit more about that as our foundation continues to progress and use technology to provide opportunities for our Black and Brown communities. But I believe when we say meet them where they are, we don't necessarily mean that we all have to physically be within proximity of each other. I'm sitting here just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, on this podcast with you. I know you're in the Midwest in Indianapolis, and we probably have people from all over the country and perhaps all over the world talking with us right now. So it's not a matter of having to somehow jump on planes. And, although those things are important to build trust, but I do think that there are ways to use the opportunity to meet people where they are by creating connections with technology. And so some of the ways that we can meet them where they are is by providing them with an understanding of what it is that they're capable of, and then introducing them to people who look like them, who have done those things.
Okay.
Because oftentimes what young women, specifically those of color, as a Latina, I think that part of my ability to see past what I saw in front of me was just having mentors in my life that came alongside me and said, look, I see more in you than what you see in yourself. And so one is meet them where they are. One is provide them with people who mirror or perhaps desire to understand them, come alongside them and offer them experiences, offer them insights, offer them validation that they are more than what they see right now. They may not have the ability to see that because if no one in their family has been a field hockey player, or no one in their family has competed in rugby. But if we can find ways to bring people in who've had those experiences and potentially intentionally surround ourselves with people that both mirror them, people of color, or people who have intention around exposing our young people. So maybe they aren't of color, but they have the desire, the intentional desire to validate our young women. We will see more of them enter spaces where we don't see them today. And so those are, and then I think the third thing that I would say is being able to understand that our experiences, Angel, you and I come from different ethnicities. Right. As a Black woman, you have experiences that I'll never have. As a Latina, my experiences are different than yours. Yeah. So I believe the third component is being able to check our own bias and our own experiences and recognize that our recommendation for them will not mirror the experience we've had because our experience was different.
Yes. Yeah. Don't let our limiting beliefs influence the next generation. So the buck stops with me, right? So as a mother of a 12-year-old daughter, I will be purposeful about not letting that thing come out of my mouth of saying, oh, that's not for you. That's right. If she wants to explore soccer or rugby or softball or swimming or things that have traditionally we have been locked out of, then I got to immediately check my bias, keep my mouth shut. Right. And even if she might be the only going into that space, because, we want to protect our babies. Right. And so we might think like, oh, that team is all white. So she may not be safe. He or she might not be safe going into that space. So no, don't play that sport. Right. Right. We have to check our own limiting beliefs. We do. And instead of being fearful as parents, I'm wearing my parent hat now. Maybe then, connect with the coach and share our concerns. Right. Absolutely. To be open to say, hey, they're interested. I want to support them, but I'm concerned that they're the only on the team, and that might lead to bullying or them feeling excluded, et cetera, et cetera. So please be mindful. Let's watch out for that. How do we partner together to make sure that doesn't happen?
I love it. And what you're describing is support mechanisms. It's simply just what are the layers of support mechanisms that our young women need to succeed. And oftentimes, they need us to be where they are, and that can be physically, or that could be via some technology. They need a mentor. They need people that believe in them. They need people that say, I see you more than what you see yourself. Yeah. And if we think about it, that's what mentors have done for all of us. If we all think about maybe the one or two mentors that have changed our lives, it's someone who has seen more in us than we knew we were capable of at the time. Yep. And then their ability to see that allowed us to start seeing that in ourselves.
I completely agree. Shout out to Tim, right? To that coach, Tim, who was like, hey, do you want to join the swim team? Never. I just wanted to learn how to swim and not drown. Right. Never in my mind did I think about swimming competitively. Who, me? And he's like,
Absolutely.
yeah, we could
Absolutely.
do that.
Absolutely.
You hit the nail on the head. Saw
I
something
love
in
it.
me I did not see in myself, never
I
even
love
would
it.
have contemplated.
I love it. And then, like you said before, Angel, like really checking our own limiting belief system based on our experiences, and recognizing that we may be mentoring a young person who does not have the experience that we do. So we cannot assume that what would have worked for us will work for them.
Yeah.
Validating that their experience is unique, and validating that they need something that might not be something we needed, but yet if we're meeting them where they are, we'll recognize what that is.
Got it.
We'll see.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. Okay.
Let's
So
go.
I had a conversation with my partner just a couple weeks ago, Tanya. Shout out to Tanya out there. And her daughter is a phenom, right? In volleyball. But then she's telling me about the investment, the financial and time investment that it's taking in her as a parent to get tickets to Florida, to go to these tournaments, to go to these championships, the fees that it takes to get into associations or clubs, and then the travel, right? Sometimes you got to chip in for the bus or the food, or all that comes, and we won't even talk about the equipment and the cleats. Oh my gosh, why are cleats so expensive?
Right.
So there's a financial investment in this for parents and for the family of the athlete. Again, coming from a low socioeconomic status where we're focused about putting food on the table, buying a pair of cleats is not making the cutoff list. How do we address these expensive sports for those that have the talent, the will, want to do it, but the barriers, finance and time?
Right. Well, I'll be real with you. I believe that that there's not enough of us, and I'll say myself, because I'm going to hold myself accountable. There's not enough of us who want this to happen that are not willing to put our dollars to make it happen. And so if we're saying we want young women to have access to these opportunities, we also need to be able to come together as community leaders, as corporate partners, as advocates, to be able to say, hey, if I want to make an impact, it's not just my voice that makes the impact. I need to lean in with them, and I need to do that with my time, my talent, and my treasure. And so if we want to really do it right, we have to be able to take the trifecta at this problem. And I think there are simple ways. I know that there are organizations, and I'm happy to, as a follow-on, help connect folks that are on this call to organizations. As a 501c3, we partner with organizations all over the country that are helping women. We have about 74% of our base are women and women of color. And so definitely looking at all the different ways that we can break down the systemic barriers that have not allowed women to have access to things like competitive sports that are not traditionally seen with our Black and brown communities, access to opportunities beyond sport that we don't see. Like 8 and 9% of the brown and Black communities represent tech and STEM. So there's barriers all over the place. But to be real frank with everyone that's listening to this right now, if you really want to make a difference, reach out to Angel and I. If you're looking to have your time or your talent or your treasure, we have pathways. Between Angel and I, we can bring the network to you, so you'll be able to feel good about what you do for this next generation, because it's going to take a village to make this change. This didn't happen overnight.
No,
it didn't occur last week. It didn't, it little has changed in that time frame, even since Title IX in the 80s. Frankly, Title IX, which was basically the ruling that said we need more access to college athletics for women, unfortunately, was a more of a lift for for our women in the non-Black and brown communities. So our white women disproportionately were helped by Title IX by about 70+%. So there's still a lot of work to be done, even in light of Title IX, for women to have access to competitive sports, specifically those that we do not see our populations represented in.
You said it perfectly. So tell the audience, give us your story. How you give us your background. How did you get in this space? You've made this your life's work, which is huge. So you really went from allyship to active allyship, like a thousandfold. So tell us your story, and then tell us about your foundation and the work that you're doing now, which is
absolutely
phenomenal.
Well, I appreciate that, Angel. That's so gracious, and I'm so grateful we've had a chance to meet live. I was the grateful recipient of your book, Dents in the Ceiling, and it's been a part of our mantra moving forward. And as we're scaling this, we've used the insights that you've offered women just like me and just like Tracy to make this happen for more women.
Unfortunately, the connections between tech and sports are so close. They mirror each other almost to the T. So
unbelievable parallels. So just to give you like the quick synopsis, we formed Athleta as the pandemic started to really take over our worlds. And it was a result of a couple of different things that had happened. You know, I believe, God allows things, the universe brings things into fruition. When you really start putting your intention toward your work and your life's work and your skills start to match, it doesn't feel like work anymore. It's just pure passion from there. And so I was able to take some time to really dig into what occurred with my son's really career ending sports. He was a football player, had a full ride scholarship, concussion trauma, ended up with surgeries. And so we were actually out in the state of California, somewhat in like a healing pathway, taking some time all away from corporate. I had been in pharmaceuticals prior to that, working in tech strategy. I think you and I both have that background, Angel. And I was spending some time really intentionally just trying to unwrap some of the barriers that my eldest son was facing, and just trying to lean in as a mom, just really taking the straight up look, we're going to solve this together. You're not alone. And so I was so grateful to have the opportunity. Again, that's my privilege. I was able to do that with my son and for my son. And along the way, I realized that my son's, what we often call, there's this identity foreclosure that occurs with athletes that have only seen themselves as an athlete.
Yeah.
And this is all they've ever done. This is since he was 5, 6, 7 years old, he's been a high performer, went to college, played the game, and then all of a sudden it was over. And there was this massive gap in his identity, mentally, physically, spiritually, all of the things combined. So I had a chance to kind of recognize that my son's experience was the experience of so many young people. So many.
Happened to my father, happened to my husband, happened to his friends.
Exactly.
So many. It is not a unique story.
Right. Yeah. And so then along the way, again, beauty happens, collateral beauty happens among tragedy most often, if you can look for it. I was able to meet my life partner, who is the co-founder of this foundation with me. She was one of 2 Black women. You mentioned earlier the tokenism that happens. Yes. One of 2 Black women to receive a full scholarship to play women's basketball in the 80s at her university. They were the first 2 girls to ever walk in with full rides. And the story around that is epic right there. Like that should be a LinkedIn Live all on its own, how these 2 girls did this together. Like they walked in together and said, look, if you can't take both of us, we're both out. We're not going. And so it was the coolest story. And I can't even do it justice at this stage. But the beauty is Tracy's story has been really the catalyst for what we do, because I took a little bit of what I learned from Cam, and then I added all of the research and all of the learnings from Tracy's 30 years of being an athlete at the D1 level, now going into athletic leadership, then being an athletic director, serving on the NCAA's commission, infraction commission and the track and field championships, seeing all of that together said to me, we have to do more. These kids deserve more, because we have kids that are putting their blood, sweat, and tears on these fields and in these courts until they're 22, 23 years old. Yep. And they're walking out of college and they have no idea what they're going to do with their lives.
Yep.
Absolutely. And no one has ever even asked them the question. No one has asked. And then you think about kids that are from the population sets that we're talking about, Angel. 87% of fully scholarship D1 athletes come from below the poverty line. 87%. So these kids do not have privilege like we just described, right, at many levels. They do not have access. They do not have people that are in their network that have opportunities that would naturally be a fit for them.
Right. So you mean, I'm sorry, they can't go to their neighbor's dads who has a law firm who can help them get an internship? Is that what you mean? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what we're throwing down. That's what we're throwing down. Yes, you got it.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a population of kids that are hungry, determined, driven, focused, resilient, but have no way of seeing themselves beyond their sport. And so what we did was we brought really the concept of what can we do to be inclusive leaders in engaging this population and take technology to meet the population where they are. Okay. And so in this very recent turn of events, we had an opportunity to work with the NCAA and to pilot an initiative with 3 historically Black colleges, Claflin University in South Carolina, Grambling State in Louisiana, and FAMU in Tallahassee, Florida. So those are the 3 schools that we've been working with intentionally at this stage. What we've recognized is when you go in there and you're very intentional, you bring allies, you bring people of color, you bring former student athletes, you bring people with access that they've never seen before, and you say to them, we've got you. And you do that multiple times, and you bring them through technology into an app where they can learn and experience and have like this kind of a conversation on a routine basis.
Yeah.
You're meeting them in the locker room. You're meeting them in
I love
the living room. You're on a bus. I literally was on a bus with a Grambling State softball player.
Yeah.
He was getting ready to go to Texas Southern and play a game.
Yeah.
And he had a mentoring session right on the college bus.
So like, this is what you meant by meet them where they are. Like literally.
Yeah. So I was on her bus virtually. She's on her bus. And we had one of the best conversations about her next steps so far that has occurred yet. So the beauty is you learn how to overcome, and they start to see that your intention is real. Because one thing about young people is they know when it's not real.
Yeah, they can sniff the being inauthentic or hypocrite or when it's performative.
Unbelievable.
Right? Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And we get rid of this whole hero. I got a cape. I got to
come save you.
No, we're not doing that. We're just coming here. We got you. We want you to know that we give a damn, and we're going to help you make this next step. Not just okay, but we're going to help empower you to make the next step possible for you. And so the beauty is, after this pilot, we've had a semester with them. Now we're in the very end. We're going to have a celebratory summit where we're going to bring all the schools together via a broadcast.
Yeah.
And we're going to have just this fantastic celebration. It's a week from this coming Sunday. So it's the 24th.
Okay.
Young people together. We're going to feed them. We're going to celebrate with them. We're going to vibe with them. And we've learned that over time, their engagement numbers have skyrocketed. We were nervous, and to be honest, the NCAA was like, if we get like 25% engagement, we'll probably be happy. That's what they were telling us. We actually put some hard numbers on ourselves because time, talent, treasure, right? You got to own that right here.
Yep.
So we said, look, we're going to shoot for 80% engagement. They were like, all right.
You're like, okay.
Good luck with that. But here's the net of that.
Okay.
We started out at right at 82% because we hit them really hard with some really cool content that's like TikTok kind of content.
Okay.
They were kind of hooked.
Yeah.
And over the time, we've gone from 82 to 91. So I'm just saying, it's not, this isn't something that,
you've proven it.
You have to prove it, but it's just about you got to give a damn. You got to show up. You got to be authentic with them. And then they just have to continue to see you there. Like,
Yes.
and then you need to see them. Like, we got to see them for who they are, because they're amazing people. And so the beauty is now, Angel, we've been given an opportunity now to start scaling this.
Okay.
So our big goal is over the next year, we're going to be able to reach over 1,200 of our students from these communities of color. And we're going to be going directly into the historically Black colleges, and then starting to layer in some Hispanic serving institutions who are under-resourced as well, because we want to be able to be equitable across both landscapes. And we're just so grateful. I mean, we're just so grateful. This morning's conversation with the NCAA was just about this. How do we make this bigger? How do we help more young people? How do we break down the barriers to economic mobility that have plagued our communities for far, far too long?
Yep.
And so, I'm excited to be on this with you. But more importantly, I want to put a call out to anyone who would be interested in mentoring a young person.
There you go.
Because when I talked about providing access, we need to be where they are, but we also need to come alongside them and say, you got this. You can do this. And so if anyone out here is interested in mentoring a student athlete at the collegiate level that will be in the historically Black college network that we're starting to now scale, we would love to hear from you. We have a fairly rigorous application process, but if Angel vouches for you, that's going to be a positive.
I was going to say, now that once the moment that I met you and learned about your program, I'm on the hunt in my network. Yes. Anybody that's like, oh, I was an athlete in school, or oh, I was a D1 softball player. I'm like, connection.
Exactly.
You need to be a
mentor. I'll be honest. We've only got about 60% of our active mentor network that were former athletes. We have 77% are STEM. Okay. 77% have roles, not degrees per se, because only 23% of people who are in STEM had degrees in STEM, just saying. So that's one thing. And that's one thing we have to demystify for the kids. But so we have 77% of us are STEM, 70% are people of color, 60% of us are women or women of color. And then we have about 60% that are former student athletes. So there's a space and a place for everyone that has that desire to bring time, talent, and treasure to these young people and meet them where they are.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That was a perfect wrap up, because I was just thinking, like, in summary, we talked about, in case you popped in or out throughout this conversation, in summary, we talked about the gamut. We started off talking about how to attract Black and brown young girls into competitive sports that have traditionally left them out. And then how to break down some of those barriers and that have been inequitable, like travel, money, the expense, etc. And then we've come full circle about Athletia Association that takes these athletes that have the identity of being a lifetime athlete and now transitioning them into the workspace, right? These are phenomenally talented folks that have trained mentally, physically, emotionally. They are at the top of their game. Now they're graduating from school. These are our high potentials. For those of you who are in corporate America, you know what I'm talking about, right? This is a pot. This is a pot of high potential. So when we talk about, where do we go to get our next associates or our next analysts? How do we backfill some of those that have decided to leave and pursue other things, right? The great resignation, and everybody's all nervous about how we're going to staff and backfill these roles. This group of people, this is it. This is a gold mine of talent right here that we can nurture. And they are primed to be our next executive leaders, right? There's a next generation for that.
That's right.
So I am so happy to have had this conversation with you. The timing could not have been any better, right? Hot off the press with the fact that you're going to scale this and support so many athletes. We are going to, as soon as this gets done, you're going to send me an email with some of those resources, right? I'll be posting and highlighting and promoting your association. And so folks that are interested, that have heard us talking, can know how to give their time, talent, and treasure that really want to move the needle. This is the perfect way to go from armchair ally to active ally.
Got it. Love it.
All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you for staying with us. I know we ran 5-6 minutes over.
Yes. Thank you, Angel.
Thank you.
So grateful for you. Thank you for your platform.